Noel Nation, welcome into another episode of the Renegade Rundown. I see people in the comments saying we're hanging out with James too much. I don't know. We've been kind of ish. We've been on the ish side since the beginning, but we'll try to do a little bit better. I mean, we had it scheduled actually for 7:05, so you'll have to cut us some slack. We have a great panel today. We've got our good friend Max Chadwick from the Preferred Walk-Ons podcast, part of the Pro Football Focus family. We had him on a couple months ago before the season. It was maybe a little bit during the season before a Clemson game, something like that. Anyways, we also have Jesse Coger, plantthespear.com, at Plant the Spear right here on YouTube. He's with the show all the time. And, of course, my lovely co-host, she's kind of diagonal from me today, but that's Jen Santy, a.k.a. at Jen Santy 1890 on X. But here we are, guys, man. Thanks for everybody joining me. How's everybody doing? I know we've had this winter storm affecting everybody. Jen's kids have been out of school for a week. I know Jesse's in North Carolina. Is everybody safe? Everybody kind of been good from these storms and everything going through the areas?
Yeah, man, it's freaking cold, and I'm not built for this weather, but, you know, it is what it is. I work outside, so that's extra not good, but, you know, it is what it is, man. I'm also like, if I had a debate between this and like 110-degree summer, I'm probably leaning to this. So it's not too bad for me. Yeah,
that is very true. Where are you located at, Max?
I'm in lovely Cincinnati, Ohio right now. That's where the PFF offices are located. And I just want to shout out my alma mater right now, Syracuse. We're actually playing you guys in basketball right now. I have it on my TV. So I know the commenters probably won't love me for that I'm representing the alma mater right now, but I had to throw this on for you guys, of course, as we're going against you guys right now.
Yeah, that's fair, man.
Most Florida State football fans are North Carolina basketball fans or Duke fans anyway, so they're fine with that.
Yeah.
That is kind of a weird thing that happens. It's true. There's people who are diehard FSU football fans, but they're like Duke when basketball season gets here. But we've made the Florida State basketball team has really, made a miraculous comeback. I think won 5 of the 6 last conference games. So that's pretty cool. I seen we had some action in the comments. I think we've got a new member here. Yep, that's right. Lee Smith. Thank you so much for joining up, guys. We're going to do that members only show that we've been talking about for a long time. Me and Jen haven't decided if we're going to do it Friday or if we're going to do a special show like on a Saturday or a Thursday or something, but we'll get with you guys and we'll do a community post and let y'all know exactly when that's going to be. But we're about to hit 100. We'll probably hit 100 members in this show. So we'll do that. We'll commemorate that with a members only show. 2,000 subscribers. We're right on the doorstep of that. That could happen tonight. So we're going to give away some money and do some fun stuff when that happens too. So man, it's just been a beautiful ride. We appreciate Max and Jesse for coming on, all the people at Spear Addicts and Media Group that have came on, Jen for being here the past 2 months. It's been amazing. But to open the show up today, I want to, bring something up on the screen here. It's the CBS 247 Sports kind of cute quarterback rankings for the transfer portal. And, and of course, no, it's not working. They've got DJ Ukulele as the 16th ranked quarterback with all kinds of guys ahead of him, high school guys, guys who've never played a snap. I'd like to get you guys in everybody's opinion, but what's your kind of first reaction to that as I try to get it pulled up here and we can look at all the different guys ahead of them?
Well, I think it's crap, so there's my opinion.
I don't like it at all. We talked a little pre-show about it. These kind of transfer portal rankings and why I try to go differently with the PFF ones, like they always kind of stray too much onto what they were rated coming out of high school, which at some point you kind of got to throw that out when you're like a junior, in college already. So I don't love that. And a lot of these guys that haven't proven anything are above them. I probably 16th is way too low. I probably say he's 7th or so. I see a lot of these guys that are above him right now. I can't see why DJ, who by the way had a great year for Oregon State this past year and was actually a lot better than Clemson fans would think in his last year at Clemson. He actually has been really solid over the last couple of years. So I really disagree with that. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for.
Yeah, some of these guys, not to cut you off and I'll cut it right back to you, but some of these guys at the top, Julian Sayin, Dante Moore, Cameron Ward, like these are high kind of, these are high guys, guys you would really want to bring in. But then when you get to Malachi Nelson, Will Howard, Brock Vandegrift, Austin Mack, DeQuan Finn, it's kind of ridiculous when you see the 15 names ahead of it. Sorry to cut you off, Jesse.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I'm with Max. I think some of these are based on other things besides some on the field stuff. Like I was reading up on some of the ones where they were grading Riley Leonard, who's a really good quarterback, and I don't want to take that away from him, but they were saying that a lot of it had to do with the coach who's now at Notre Dame, who was coaching with Jaden Daniels or whatever. So it's like, I think when you look at the on-the-field experience and production, I don't think he's that low. And you're ranking a guy like Brock Vandegrift from Georgia. Now, he was talented coming out of high school, but I think they said he had thrown like 21 career passes in college. So, again, man, to me, like you're looking at a guy from as DJU's perspective who I know he didn't really play in the ACC championship the last year at Clemson. I know he started, but he didn't finish the game. But I mean, you're talking about a guy that was on an 11-3 team or something like that, has an ACC championship versus a guy who's rode the pine for a few years. So it's just crazy that you would put him over like that. I mean, because if you're going to go based off that, then look at DJU's high school rankings. I mean, he's ranked higher than Carson Beck, than a lot of the guys, Will Howard in that same class. So you're telling me you are going off high school.
Is it held against him?
Then you're also not. Like, that's what's so weird, man.
That he has all those accolades, has all those games. It's like, okay, well, we decided you have no future. Or is it they're just giving him the credit that he only has 1 year? But that doesn't work because Cam Ward's all the way up at 3rd or 4th place. So
yeah.
I think maybe they are also in a way assuming that he's topped out, and that may be the case. But I think when you look at talking about what guys can do at new teams, then I mean, again, it's like you don't know what they can do with better coaching and better athletes around them. Clemson didn't exactly have the greatest wide receiver core his last year there. Oregon State is not a very talented team, so I mean, to me, the jury's still out on that. But yeah, there's a lot of funny business in these.
And was he being coached by Dabo's cousin at Clemson too, or is that just last year?
I want to say, I think the quarterback coach there, I looked this up and I'm not 100% sure because I wanted to take into account how much the coaching was, but I think they had a pretty good quarterback coach there. But, the knock on Clemson has been the receiver talent for the last few years. Right. And that was something that he dealt with while he was there. So, but, at the same time, when you bring that up, looking at the CBS article that they wrote, they graded Riley Leonard as an A. And then they graded DJU, I think it was like a C- or something like that, C+, something crazy like that. And when you look at Riley Leonard, so I went back and looked at some numbers. When you look at what he did at Duke in that breakout year, first off, they played a trash schedule. I think it was the 96th hardest schedule in the country or whatever. His numbers compared to what DJU did at 2022 in Clemson are pretty comparable. So I just don't see the disconnect. You know what I mean? Like, you can give him some credit for the coach that he has there, but I mean, I'd say the coaches at Florida State did a pretty damn good job developing Jordan Travis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, look, like I said, DJ was really solid. It is weird that, you're saying a guy who's a solid quarterback. I'm not saying he's a superstar or anything like that, but a solid quarterback that, maybe he doesn't live up to the 5-star hype. Well, Brock Vandegrift, I mean, he hasn't played in 3 years now. So It's like you're saying that guy who was a 5-star, we just don't know what he is yet. So let's rank him up DJ. That I don't get. Like, Brock Vandegrift could be anything at this point. So I truly don't get that. I think DJ, like I said, DJ's was really solid in his final year at Clemson, and everyone thought Cade Klubnik would just blow the doors off. Cade Klubnik is struggling right now at Clemson, even with Garrett Riley. I think people kind of forget that. So I think a lot of Clemson fans are probably looking at what they had with DJ and say, hey, maybe we were too quick to kick him to the curb there. I mean, it's not really improving too much with Cade Klubnik there. So, like I said, I really like DJ. I think he's a really underrated player. Has he lived up to the 5-star billing as he was coming out of high school? No, but he's still a really talented player, big arm, that I think FSU fans, they should be very happy getting DJU in the portal.
Well, I agree.
I am.
And I'll touch on one thing that he said real quick, too. I think that, yes, it is fair to say that I think he, at 247, had him like the 208th ranked recruit of all time or something crazy like that. He was ranked higher than Jameis.
He was a 101.
So, has he lived up to that hype? I think it's fair to say that he has. But at the same time, like Spear Addicts says here, I touched on the coaching, but the scheme as well, too. And he said that Clemson didn't use him like they were supposed to. Like Max touched on, it's not the They didn't really have him in the best scheme either. That's, that's important. But I think the main thing is forget the rankings, man. What does Florida State need? They don't necessarily need that wild card. To me, they just need someone who can come in and utilize the skill set that he has. This is a guy who's relatively safe with the ball. He's got a big arm. He can run. He's built like a tank. And I think that's enough in Florida State's offense because when I originally did the video on DJU before he committed, if you look at him and Jordan Travis, his numbers are almost a carbon copy. And Florida State got to 13 and, 11-0 or something like that with Jordan at quarterback. So if you can just copy and paste that production, that's good for me, man. You found the winning recipe. So, like they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I like it.
Yeah.
Agreed. And it goes like who's gonna be playing in front of them? That's a big deal. When you look at Florida State, the trenches getting better, the wide receiver play just continually getting better. And I'm gonna pull up here in a minute, kind of the guys that Florida State brought in. We're gonna look at their whole class. It's really curious to get some of Max's and everybody's opinions on just who they brought in, how they can work in Mike Norvell's system. And it's my idea. Like, I think Florida State is legitimately better. I think they're going to be more talented than they've ever been under Mike Norvell. A lot of people think there's going to be a dip. I understand we're going to be less talented, but where does, we can start with Max. Where do you stand on that? Do you see Florida State being an even better team next year, or do you disagree with that?
I unfortunately disagree. I listen, I love Florida State. I was one of the people who I had them 4th in my preseason ranking, and then I thought they were making the playoff and winning the ACC, and I should have been right on both of those accounts. But yeah, with the amount of talent that they lost, listen, it's not going to look as bad as it did in the bowl game against Georgia. That's for sure. But they are losing a lot of talent to the NFL draft. I don't think this is a program that's on the downswing, though. I think this is just, listen, it's going to take a year to adjust after losing all of those superstar players. And they'll be right back there because they are recruiting at a very, very high level. And I like what they did in the transfer portal. Like I said, DJU is a really quality quarterback. Marvin Jones Jr., another edge from Georgia, another guy who didn't play too much at Georgia, but he's a former 5-star recruit a couple of years ago. I'm excited to see what he can do. Now, again, it's about what they do to replace all of these superstars. And I mean superstars that Florida State had offensively and defensively. I do think there will be a dip. I do think this is more of a top 20-ish team going into next year, maybe top 15. I don't think this is a top 5 or top 10 or like a national title contender like I thought they were last year. But I still think this is a team that, in a kind of a weaker ACC going into next year, I still think Florida State can compete for the conference title. And if you do that, 12-team playoff, you're guaranteed to make the college football playoff if you win the ACC next year. So I still think Florida State could, fight for a playoff spot next year.
For sure. I think, kind of my contention is more on, the talent. I'll give it to you that absolutely kind of the experience isn't there. And let's talk about, one really important part of this thing. It's going to be our running game, and that's all behind the offensive line. If you look at our offensive line, the number of starts total, it's going to be nowhere near the 2,000 starts we had last year. But we bring Robert Scott back. We bring the big guys back. We bring Maurice Smith back. We add a guard in Richie Leonard, who's better than any guard we've had the past 2 or 3 years. He was the best guard on Florida last year. He really fits the scheme perfect. Alex Atkins wanted him out of high school. He's going to plug right in. You add a guy like Royo Williams, who is a guy like at running back. We really haven't had that guy that put it all together. Trey Benson was great, and Roydell doesn't have that top speed, but I just think between Roydell and Keziah coming home, I think the floor may be lower due to that experience issue, as you mentioned, but I just feel like if they can put it all together and you have 15, 16 games to do it, if you can make it all the way, there's just that, there's that possibility. I just feel like the ceiling's higher just because the overall talent level along the trenches, especially.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the thing when you talk about 24 Florida State versus 23 Florida State, in my personal opinion, is when you look at just who they're bringing in, the roster turn that's happened, I think the blue chip ratio, if you may, is a little higher for Florida State now. So your overall talent level is higher, you just have a little bit more unknown. Last year I was really comfortable with predicting Florida State to go at the time like 11-1. Maybe 12-0 after I saw Clemson lose to Duke. I thought that was certainly on the table because you knew what you came into the season with. There was really not a lot of guesswork. This year, you just really don't know. But again, when you look at the amount of blue chip players that they've added, the guys who have transferred out, I think someone asked me on one of our shows do I think this is a more talented team? Yes, in a sense of blue chip ratio, it's more talented. There's just a little bit more guesswork with this team. With just a lot of the pieces that are there that haven't played as much, but they may be more talented players. And we're going to find out a lot in that first game against Georgia Tech, who is, I've been trying to look at some things for 24, and they're bringing back a lot on offense. So that game might not be as easy as people think it is. But if you can get past Georgia Tech, then you have Boston
I've been
College
saying that.
So like,
Georgia Tech's passing game is pretty damn good. They bring that quarterback back. But you made a good point about the players not having experience. And when you look down, like the players that are leaving, of the 18 players that are leaving, I'm not seeing any production whatsoever outside of Dennis Briggs Jr., which is the biggest one to swallow. Tate Rodemaker was played in some terrible spots, but you want to talk about the quarterback room as well. Jordan Travis was great. We lost him. We don't know if the ceiling is going to be that high with DJU. I personally think it can be, just because of the trajectory of the program, the offensive line, the receiver development. I just feel like DJU could really blossom and maybe throw for like 3,500 to 4,000 instead of 3,000 yards. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I kind of lost my train of thought there. But yeah, the people that have left have just been for the betterment of the program, and the guys that have come in, I can't be higher on.
Yeah, and I'm not as worried about Georgia Tech as you guys are, because we know how to knee a ball. So that, I think, works well for Florida State in that scenario. We won't be getting into that mess. But I actually worry about the wide receiver position. Not because I don't trust Hakeem Williams or anything, but you lose somebody like Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. Imagine what they could have done with like a DJU coming in this year. I mean, I think that would have been a nice thing to see, or a nice little safety net for him to have, especially coming in, playing at Florida State for the first time in the scheme for the first time. So that would have been a nice little extra for him. But I'll be happy to see how that works out. And that's my only concerning issue. I mean, there's other concerns, but I would say losing something like a Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, obviously, and you just want to see who steps up. But I do like the Jaylen Lucas kid. I really like him coming in. But we'll see. And we didn't get Keon Coleman until April. We didn't get him to the second portal window. So you never know. You never know what's going to be out there. You never know what they'll see in spring practice and all these things when that starts up. Maybe they'll pick up somebody, or maybe they don't need to. We don't know. Like, Justin Hill's going to be fully healthy, hopefully. Hakeem Williams, we'll just see.
Well, let's see. Let's talk about Malik Benson. You want to talk about bringing in?
Oh yeah.
I know it was in the late portal, but you bring in Malik Benson. He's a guy in camp they were talking about was going to be Alabama's #1 wide receiver. Mm-hmm. I mean, you end up with Jalen Milroe at quarterback. He was still a factor in the passing game, but just he wasn't getting to those reads. He wasn't going to hit him. So I'm curious what everybody thinks about him, because I think he could be. Obviously, Keon Coleman set an extremely high standard. Do I think he's going to match that? No, but could he, in a year and a half, maybe in 25, be the dude coming in to be a first-round pick in that year? I don't know. But I know from everything I've seen and heard from anybody I've talked to on the Alabama side, like they all thought he could be that dude, especially going into this next year. He could be that dude.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Malik Benson, he was a guy that, coming out, I think it was JUCO, right? He was #1 JUCO recruit in the country. Alabama really kind of struggled at receiver over the last couple of years, a lot like Clemson, where it's like this is a school that was producing first-round receivers basically every single year, and then all of a sudden it kind of halted randomly. They thought Malik Benson could be that guy. He never really kind of did that this past year, only having like 160 yards, 14 catches. Never really just kind of emerged. Other guys in Alabama's receiving room emerged. Jermaine Burton turned into a really solid player for them. Isaiah Bond, who's now at Texas, turned into a really solid player as well. Malik Benson's kind of fell by the wayside, but he was a supremely talented kid coming out of JUCO. And now he's at Florida State, where we just talked about him. They are missing a lot of their weapons that they had. I mean, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson, Jaheim Bell as well is gone too, which I think is a big loss as well. I think that there's an avenue there for Malik Benson to really step up and potentially be the number one guy for DJ next season.
Yeah, I agree with that. Malik Benson's a guy that I'm excited about. I think he's one of those guys that has a really high ceiling if you can get him there. You know, when you look back at what he did at JUCO, and I understand it's JUCO, it's kind of hard to put a whole lot into that, you know, but it was at Hutchinson Community College, which is a really good JUCO program. I mean, Alvin Kamara has went through there, some other guys like that. But, I mean, he put up insane numbers at JUCO. I mean, his freshman year there, he averaged 112 yards a game. I mean, I'll take that all day long. I think when you look at what he did at Alabama, you know, Milroe's not a great quarterback. I think DJU's better than what you have there. He was only targeted 21 times at Alabama, so it's not like he got a lot of workload there. And at the same time, there is an adjustment period. I mean, if you're going to go from JUCO to a team like Alabama, it's going to be hard to really kind of make that jump year one. But at the same time, you know, you'd heard a guy like Tom Luganville come out and say that he watched their bowl practice, and that was a guy that was giving them fits, the Alabama defense. So I think the potential is definitely there. You know, you also touched on Destin Hill. Like, people also have to remember, I mean, the guy's a true freshman by on paper, or he was last year, but he also hadn't played football in 3 years. So, like, there's going to be a little bit of development there as well. I mean, obviously, you're losing a lot of the guys like Johnny Wilson. That would be nice to have that 6'7" target, but I think who you're replacing them with has the potential to maybe be a better group as a whole, other than maybe Keon Coleman, because I mean, the dude's just kind of a freak. But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in the room. I just think it's going to be important to stay healthy too, because you look at Portier's a guy that hasn't been able to stay healthy. Darian Williamson, those are really your two guys with good size. Neither one of them have been able to stay healthy most of the time. So, you know, and then people also forget about Ja'Kai Douglas. He was banged up for most of the year. And then, like, anytime he steps on the field, he's got like a 100-yard game. He plays quarterback sometimes. Like, so that's another guy that I'm excited about too. And don't forget about what Jaylen Lucas can do in space out of the backfield. That's another guy.
Jaylen Brown.
Right. I was just going to say Jaylen Brown too. Yeah, that's another guy I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what he can do too.
I mean, that's a Hakeem. He's the same age as Hakeem. He don't have a bunch of stats, but he was a freshman. It's like you get that guy, Hakeem and Jaylen Brown. You're not going to be many sophomore combinations out there better than that with more potential. You have Malik Benson, like you just brought up, Jaylen Lucas, all the different guys. I agree with Spear Addicts. I think this is going to be a more explosive unit. I know the offensive line is better. Like, I know it's going to be another level. It's like we had the experience. So will there be a couple more penalties this year as a team overall? Yeah, but you're going to be able to see more maulings and more kind of being able to get that 1 yard guaranteed on 3rd and 1 and on 4th and 1, and not have to, you know, be so much trickeration in there. And Jordan Travis, like, it's a bit of revisionist history that, like, Jordan Travis was this Peyton Manning backfield quarterback throwing all over the place. Like 22, he kind of shocked people with how great he did. And this past year, he even stepped it up to another level. But there is kind of a hierarchy of quarterbacks and spinning the ball and all that stuff. Like DJU, people want to talk crap and call him a game manager. That's fine. Call him game manager, because that's what he can do. He can get in there and just make those plays and make defenses pay a bit more consistently than anything we've had in a long time. Like, he's more of a polished passer than we've had in quite some time. So I'm really excited to see the difference. And he's a load, like I said, in short yardage. So
I think you got to look at the run aspect too. You saw how much when Jordan Travis was banged up most of the year, when he decided to run the ball, it completely opened up this offense in a way that we hadn't seen, because that was one of his most elite abilities. You at least have to make them respected. DJU ran the ball over 100 times at Clemson in 2022. If you can just get enough,
knock on wood, that he's a lot sturdier. He could do that thing a lot more.
Exactly. But you think back to 2022, they ran for over 200 yards in 8 games. They struggled a little bit last year. So like you said, man, if you can bolster up the offensive line, let those guys get healthy, build a little better depth, and you can get the ability to run the ball like that again, to take some of the pressure off the pass game, I think things can definitely open up with a running quarterback. And I will say, talking about durability, I would say that now in year 2, with another year of development and getting the experience that he got, even if it wasn't all great experience, I feel better about having Brock Glenn come in at quarterback 2 if you need him to, versus Tate Rodemaker. I just think that's a better QB2 situation as well.
I was about to say that was a perfect segue, because I wanted to bring that up. That's the thing that earlier I said I lost my train of thought. You talk about DJU, whether you want to trade him off with Jordan Travis, that's another thing. But the quarterback room as a whole, there's no comparison having brought Glenn with the experience he got at the end of the year, being able to go through this camp, and also a Luke Roden. No, I can't think. Luke Cromenhawk coming in, as well as a Trevor Jackson to provide a running threat for the scout team. I mean, the quarterback room is leaps and bounds better than it was, unless anybody thinks different or has any comment on that.
No, it's got to be better, man. I mean, Willie Taggart didn't sign a high school quarterback for 2 years.
Yeah,
sets you back for a long time.
Right now, you got a 4-star coming in as the PWO. I mean, come on, man. It's leaps and bounds better. So yeah, I think we're in good hands going forward, and that's the other reason why I get excited about guys. You know, like you talk about the Jaylen Brown kid coming in that has multiple years. He just hasn't done a lot. You have loaded the roster up this year where I think Florida State can put themselves in the conversation. But when you look at the future that's coming, that rising blue chip ratio, some of the guys at quarterback that you have, like this is something that they're kind of starting to look more at that 2-3 year build. And that's what makes me excited for the future.
I mean, look at 2021 going into 2022. Look at that transfer portal class and then compare it to this one. None of those dudes did anything. And they exploded on the season, 1,000-yard seasons. We found out who Jared Verse was. We found out who this is. And I guess, that's my faith. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but whether it's Marvin Jones Jr., Sione Lolohea, or what was the third pass rusher's name? I'm drawing a blank, but
the guy from West Virginia. I'm not going to say it because I'm going to mess it up.
Tomiwa GeorgeGeorgiades. Whether it's any of those guys, one of those 3 all-name guys, like somebody is going to be that dude. And lost in all this is a guy, Patrick Payton, that people acted like he was going to go somewhere for money. He comes. He comes back to Florida State. Patrick Payton could become a Brian Burns type player last year. But is there another team? I know we could talk about Florida State's portal class all year. Is there another team? I saw this question in the chat, but that you really just love their portal class and they think they just cleaned up besides Florida State?
That's a good question. I think Louisville did a terrific job, and I think Louisville lost some key places, but they also brought in some really, really good players as well. Calvin Lacey, one of the top receivers in the transfer portal from South Alabama, comes in there. I really like what they did. I think Ole Miss had a few guys that were going there I was very excited about back out last second. Like Tyler Barron, who actually ironically went to Louisville, the edge defender from Tennessee. But I still think Ole Miss did a terrific job as well. But yeah, I mean, I put Florida State up there, man. They're probably in the top 5 to 10 portal classes in terms of what they brought in. But if you're looking for the best one, I think Louisville, for me at least, was really, really terrific. And then Ohio State brought in 2 superstars in Caleb Downs and Quinshon Judkins, and then Will Howard coming in as well. Ohio State got a few superstars there, but I think overall Louisville, Ohio State, Florida State, Ole Miss, those are kind of the schools. Colorado, only because they have to build through the transfer portal because Deion just does not recruit high school kids, apparently.
Right.
Those are kind of the schools I would look at and say.
He also doesn't negative recruit other schools like they do against him.
Deion.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
He's saying that stuff because the reason he's not getting high school kids and his whole class decommitted is because he's not going to be there in 2025. I know it. Max knows it. Jen knows it. Jesse knows it. Billy Bob knows it. Every fucking body knows it. So it's like it's kind of hard to go look those kids in the face and say, I'd love you to come to Colorado for 4 years because I'm going to be here. Even though my kid's going to be in the NFL, I'm going to be here. I promise it. So we can leave that where it is. But yeah, I agree. Louisville, and we're about to talk. I wanted to, get y'all's opinion on some of these games. We can just jump right into it. I think Louisville could end up being that conference champion team, but like Jen said, we got to start out with Georgia Tech in Dublin, Ireland. And we just found out today that you've got 9 days to get your ass back here and play Boston College. So no bye week there, but we do have 3 bye weeks to spend throughout the rest of the year. Because when you play, they were moving to 2 bye weeks, and we do have the week 0 games. So that adds, that frees up another week, or you'd end up playing 13 games. So Florida State ends up with 3 bye weeks. I don't know why they wouldn't put one right there, but the ACC loves to have us in these Labor Day games, and I don't know. We probably agreed to it, so I won't talk too much shit. But yeah, you've got a 9-day turnaround.
They want
for
people
Boston
to watch
College.
those Labor Day games. So
Yeah, I think that's why they did Florida on a Friday night. A couple of years ago?
Or is it Duke?
They knew. Well, Duke's on a Friday night too, but a couple of years back, remember they locked in Florida on a Friday night because you knew you could grab the prime time
last year.
spot.
Florida played on the Friday night against Utah last year, wasn't it?
Well, remember we played Florida on a Friday night. I think it was one year we played them on a Friday night because you lock in that primetime slot. You know what I mean? So now you kind of get Boston College in a primetime slot, Duke's in a primetime slot. So it does, because you'll be probably the only game on a Friday night or the Monday night. I also agree. Louisville's the one that I really stood out in the portal. Originally, I was almost going to say, man, Virginia Tech might be a sleeper team next year. They brought back some of their best players. Man, once you see that Louisville class, I think it's going to probably be Florida State Louisville in the ACC championship again.
Jeff Brom, I mean, he's just what the doctor ordered over there. I mean, they could really do some stuff. Obviously we don't know what their schedule is yet, but yeah. Either one of y'all have any comments on that too?
Well, they had an easy schedule last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Louisville, I mean, dude, they bring back Ashton Gelati as well at edge defender, who's one of the best edges in the country. I don't love Tyler Shough. I will say that was the quarterback they brought in from Texas Tech. Some people like him a lot. I haven't seen much from him at Texas Tech that make me believe he's a really solid quarterback. But then again, Jack Plummer wasn't a really solid quarterback either, and yet they still went to the ACC championship game. So I think Louisville is going to be right up there. I think Clemson is still going to be right up there. Clemson might have a top 2 to 3 defense in the country heading into next year. Question is whether or not Cade Klubnik can finally make the leap as a junior. But I think Clemson is still going to be up there just because of that defense and how good that defense will be next year. But yeah, I think Clemson, Louisville, Florida State, those are kind of the 3 teams in the ACC right now that you're kind of looking at as to who will probably be in contention for the conference title next year.
If Klubnik can just stop turning the ball over, Clemson would be halfway decent. But they only get Georgia in week 1. So that's going to be, man, that's going to be
easy.
Yeah, that'll be a good one. That's going to be a really good game.
I want to shout out SMU. I think SMU too, new ACC school. SMU's got a lot coming back. I think they're going to be a quality team too. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people in the ACC next year.
Yeah, I know their record against Power 5 was pretty terrible. But, man, I will tell you one thing too. I don't think we have any problem beating them. But when I started looking at Memphis, I was like, okay, we better not sleepwalk through that game. Their quarterback's, he's thrown for over 3,000 pretty much, I think, 3 years in a row. They like 10 wins this season. That's probably a little tougher game than it looked like on paper a few years ago. I still think we win, but that's a pretty decent team,
Yeah.
Well, we don't even have to bring in somebody from the other side. We can have just Jen break down the Memphis side for us when that week comes up. But William Hester, before we get to your question, I want to just let everybody know we're right there at 100 members. So we're probably going to do that members only show either Friday or another day later this week. Me and Jen will let you guys know. But like I said, memberships are available. You can gift memberships. You can go get signed up at renegadereport.substack.com if you want to pay that way. There's a Cash App in the comments. Whatever you want to do to support us, we really appreciate it. And the same thing, make sure
one thing, did nobody else liked what Clemson did in the portal, or?
Oh, I'm doing like a promo. We weren't even talking about it.
I know. I
don't even remember where I was at now. I was going to tell you fuckers to go spend some money on something, but I can't remember. But William Hester says, does Max have an opinion on FSU versus ACC versus ESPN before we get into that? The people want to hear about that. So we'll talk about the latest and exactly where we are with that for a few minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I know they're trying to get out of the grant of rights deal. I know it's going to be a pretty penny it's going to cost to get out of that. But I know the lawyers are thinking about it. I've heard rumors that the SEC is not interested in Florida State. So then all of a sudden the question becomes, if you're leaving the ACC, the Big Ten, are they interested? That'd be interesting. As a fan of Penn State, as a fan of the Big Ten, I can tell you I would love Florida State to come to the Big Ten. I got to be a huge addition for the conference and make it, make it even more even with the SEC, honestly. And so I think this ACC is gonna, we'll see what happens to them. Hopefully they don't go the way of the Pac-12, but the way I'm hearing a lot of schools kind of looking at it, it's sounding a little alarming, especially as a Syracuse alum. Like I mentioned before, I'm kind of worried about them too, because it's like, what's going to happen to Syracuse? Because on the ACC, the Big Ten and the SEC, obviously are going to be interested in Syracuse. So there are going to be a few schools that get screwed over, like Washington State and Oregon State were in the Pac-12. So I'm kind of worried about that. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but I do think Florida State is actively looking to get out of the ACC. Right
Fran Brown going to make a run? Y'all going to make a run at the ACC championship game this year? Or what?
They have an easy schedule. They got Kyle McCord in the transfer portal. They have some. I think there's a non-zero chance Syracuse can win 10 games next year. And if you win 10 games, I mean, you can maybe make a 12-team playoff. I think there's only one 10-2 team in the Power 5 this year that wouldn't have made the playoff in the 12-team playoff, and I think it was Oklahoma. So if you win 10 games, I mean, you have a really good shot at making the playoff. And like I said, Syracuse's schedule is really easy. Maybe Syracuse can pull out the 10 wins next year. We'll see.
Chris was saying the issue at Virginia Tech is coaching. I think Syracuse had coaching, but their issue was recruiting.
Yes.
And they've got that fixed. So I'm really curious to see what he can do up there because, you got a young guy that's fired up and really, he's pushing. He's glorifying that New York culture like you really haven't seen anybody do it. Syracuse, which is crazy. It's the same thing as Miami or LA. Like, why not sell New York? I mean, it's Manhattan. It's the Big Apple. It's the whole thing. But Amelia Island,
it's
making it rain. Thank you again.
It's 4.5 hours from New York City, which is it's so funny. They always call it New York's team. It's like they're not even close to New York City. But
closest thing there is, really,
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Rutgers is right there too, if you want to call that. Rutgers
that is true.
But yeah, Syracuse. You make a great point. I mean, I don't want to turn to the Syracuse show. I love talking about Cuse, but
no, man, we don't give a shit. We have fun here.
The whole problem was recruiting, and that was exactly it. I think I saw a stat where just going off high school recruiting rankings, Syracuse is the least talented team in the Power 5, and yet they're making a bowl game every year. So that says a lot as to how good the coordinators were. I don't think it was Dino Babers that much. Now the problem is, though, you fix the recruiting part, but you have brand new coordinators, brand new coaches. Can they coach them up as well as the last coaches did? So that's kind of the question now. But just purely off recruiting and purely off what they've done in the transfer portal, I am very, very high on the Syracuse Orange going forward.
I will say, just scrolling through Twitter, just looking, you're like, oh, well, look, Syracuse got a commit. Oh, look, Syracuse got another. I'm like, okay, he's cooking up there. I was like, Syracuse might be
Ohio State starting quarterback. That's mind-boggling to me. And Kyle McCord, by the way, is solid. He's a very solid quarterback. He started for Ohio State. If you start for Ohio State, you're good enough for Syracuse. I can tell you that much.
Well, he's much better than DJ Ukulele, according to CBS Sports. Way better, 10 spots better. So
I don't agree. I think they're on par. I think they're on par, but I don't think they're a massive difference.
No, that's a big pickup for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I was going to say is I don't know. I think you can probably rest easy on Syracuse right now in the ACC because just from what I've heard today, I think we're going to find out some stuff February 16th. I think I don't see them opening up that grant of rights or any of that for any other team to follow the same playbook that Florida State's going to use to get out. Mm-hmm. I don't think they want to argue on whether or not the grant of rights is rock solid. I think what they're going to do is make a settlement, give a number, and that way no other team does the exact same thing, has the same argument to challenge it. I think what they're going to do is make it be they were a problem child. We just gave them an amount and got out. They don't want to open that stuff up for other teams to litigate it and get out and follow suit, because should they do that, you're going to see Clemson follow, the other big schools follow, and that's what will tear the ACC apart. I think they know Florida State wants out. They know Florida State has a landing spot, or else they would not be doing this. So that's how I think they're going to save the ACC from following. And then if Clemson and anybody else wants to follow, they're going to have to go through the same legal process that Florida State does. Rack up them billable hours, not open up those grant of rights. I'm telling you, I think that's how it ends. And I think the ACC will stay intact, because right now the ACC offices are wanting to protect their jobs. And if they open up that grant of rights to be argued, I think that's where they go down the hill, because should they lose, then you have the implosion of the conference. I don't think they want to risk it.
So
and that's just what I've heard today.
Break that down for the people again. I know we've talked about it a ton, but what exactly is that February 16th date?
The February 16th date is going to be the it's kind of where it's either they're going to either decide jurisdiction or whether or not the oh crap, I can't think of the word. I had it on the tip of my tongue here.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
It's okay. It's basically, it's going to be jurisdiction. It's going to be, you're going to kind of see where things are going to go. I'm trying to I'll think of it in a minute. I'll get to it. I promise. But yeah, so you're going to see some movement there. Maybe Chris, if you're in here, you can tell me where I'm going with that. But so February 16th.
What?
So North Carolina has hired, or not North Carolina, I guess the same thing. The ACC has hired a local law firm in Florida, which is a bunch of Gator fans, right? They've hired them to argue their case in Florida. Florida State has hired a law firm in North Carolina as well, a local. So the argument on jurisdiction is going to be then. It's also going to be about those amendments that the ACC filed. Because the problem was when they filed it at first, they kind of they just wanted to get in first. It was kind of a sloppy filing. It was, their amendments is based off of what then Florida State did, right? So they're trying to make them a non-managing partner. Basically, that's what it's going to be. They're ruling on the managing partner part on February 16th, right? So they're going to say, can Florida State have a vote in the ACC or not? That's where they're wrangling for that.
I think you're right, though. I think really they want to prevent the discovery phase, because if you open up and they find a leak in the dam and Florida State's able to push through, I think you could get the rest of the ACC to follow suit, and then you have a house of cards that's going to come crumbling down. And again, I mean, these guys, they like their paycheck, so they're going to try and do everything they can to stop that from happening. They added those 3 teams because, in the thing, they have to stay at a certain amount of Power 5 teams. I think they were planning on having a couple of teams leave the conference, so I think they were kind of preemptively striking that. We know they obviously got ahead of Florida State in the lawsuit, so that's something to watch there. But yeah, I think they're going to come to a settlement at some point. And, I agree with, at the end of the day, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know too much about that, but I will say I don't think Florida State would go to this point without having at least an idea of where they could land, or B, that they have a good idea that they could win this lawsuit. But at the same time, it's just crazy, man. Every time you hear something come out from the ACC, it's like, we're suing back because you're questioning the grant of rights and like you're against your duties. And it's like, man, this is the most shady backdoor way of doing business. The fact that they don't even want you to question, like, no, trust us. It's fine. It's fair. No, it's good. We promise. Don't ask. Don't ask. Don't tell. Yeah. And it's insane that you could be this upset that teams really just, like Florida State just wants to put things out into daylight. They want things in the open, and they have so much to hide. It's insane to me.
Yeah, and I think that's what you're going to see. I don't see them going down. I don't think they want to open up the grant of rights part. I don't think they want to adjudicate that. I think they would prefer not to, because if you open that up and if they happen to lose, that's when you would see fellow teams follow that same process. What they want the other teams to have to do is go through all these legal loops and hoops and go through and spend all this money and work on it for forever, and then maybe they just decide not to, because some teams may only have the Big 12 as an option to go to. They may not have one of the Power 2 conferences. So that's where I see it going. But they could hold out for a long time. They could slow walk it. I don't see them slow walking it, and I think they're not going to, because since the ACC is now trying to argue that Florida State shouldn't have a vote or a managing interest in the conference, I think that's where the judge, I don't think they're going to slow walk it anymore. I think the ACC filing that amendment actually sped it up.
Man, I'm hoping to go back to ACC Media Days again this year. And man, you're going to be able to cut the tension with like a butter knife in there. It's going to be ridiculously awkward.
Yeah, for sure. And I just, and like I said, I wasn't trying to put Jen on the spot earlier. Like, none of us really knows what's happened February 16th, but what February 16th is the cutoff date for both of these things. The one in North Carolina and the one in Florida, they both have to be answered by that time. So that's when we're going to find out, is the ACC going to try to settle this thing before any kind of discovery, anything going further, or are they setting another, date where you find out about discovery and where, the jury is going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll have some idea of answers, but that's all that is. And we'll find out different things from different stuff like that. Spirit Media says, yeah, that's why teams like Cuse, Duke, some of these others don't want this happen, because they don't have a landing spot. And that's the issue. That's why we're so pissed, is because these guys, the ACC was doing everything, negotiating on their behalf, on Duke's behalf, on North Carolina's behalf, on Wake Forest's behalf, but not Florida State's. And that's fine. If you want to do that, then give us our 15 or 18% that we deserve. so that we can make our 80 million. You know what I mean? Because like if Duke and Wake Forest and all them, if they're all right with 30, 40 million, then we can make that happen. Just give us our 15, 16% and we'll be good. But they didn't want to do that. They want to give us like an extra million, or I forget what they did when they did the unequal revenue sharing, but it was a complete joke. It wasn't a real unequal revenue share. It was like, oh, we'll go out and win the damn conference and do this and do that.
Yeah.
You know, and we'll give you a few extra bucks. It was a complete shit show.
Yeah, they had the performance-based thing, but even then, man, like I think when you look at it as a whole, what Florida State's concern is the ACC is kind of that boat anchor, you know. And if you go to an unequal revenue sharing, yes, it helps a team like Florida State. And I know this sounds terrible to say, but it doesn't help the ACC as a conference become not a shit conference. You know what I mean? So, like, at the same time, yes, it would help you dominate in this conference, but the conference is still your boat anchor. So if you start taking money away from everybody else, they're just going to keep doing what they're doing on a lesser basis. So I think you either have to find a way to get all, you know, rising tide lifts all ships, or you just have to find a way to get your life preserver and get the heck off the ship.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Now, high school recruiting is another thing that everybody wants to talk about. You know, but it's kind of tough these days, especially with this calendar the way it is. When you end these bowl games, you've got the transfer market, you've got this market. Like, how are these dudes making it? We've seen a lot more Mike Norvell and his helicopter, this and that. But now all of a sudden, Florida State's got 2 jets that they've bought. So now when it's time to hire this recruiting staffer or try to go meet this coach for this or that, they jump in the jumbo jet and they go out for the interview. Or if, we want to bring the whole staff down to South Florida for a big day recruiting, they jump in the jet. How freaking cool is that? We just we're Florida State around here. Max, how many teams have a matching jets that they use for their recruiting efforts to go around the nation?
I know a lot of guys use helicopters. That's the big kind of mode of transportation for a lot of college football coaches. Jets are a whole different thing, though. I can tell you that there are a lot of schools that cannot afford to do that. So Florida State obviously is one of those that is just such a massive brand and one of the biggest college football programs out there that can pull that off. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I actually didn't know that about Mike Norvell doing that. So that is pretty cool doing that to go visit some kids.
I know, and it's got like the logo and everything on the side of it. It looks pretty damn sweet, I gotta say.
There's no doubt.
Miami can't even afford I would say Miami can't even afford a full indoor practice facility, and Florida State's out here getting jets. So, you know, hey.
I know.
But we're the broke ones.
The 45-yard one, come on now. That's
35
that's
yards.
Nice. A 35-yard.
I mean, technically it's like 70 yards, but you only get 35 on each side of the, I guess you would call it the 35. I don't know. That's just embarrassing. Whoever engineered that thing, because they made it wide to where they have like a 20-yard section they can run drills on. Like, why didn't y'all just make that long? Like, y'all should have just made the 100-yard field, because y'all are never going to get let off of that. But anyways, over to high school recruiting. We had a big time junior weekend, and now that it's kind of passed, we found out really who kind of all was there, and it's kind of been made public. There were a lot of big time names, from 5-star linebacker Zayden Walker, 5-star DN Zion Grady, 4-star linebacker Taven Wallace, 4-star D-line Trajan Odom, 4-star running back Byron Lewis, a ton of guys, Jamie French, the 5-star wide receiver from Mandarin who just decommitted from Alabama, just like Zion Grady. I'm curious what stood out to you, obviously, Jesse, and then if there's anything being a national guy that stood out to you as far as Florida State's high school recruiting.
Yeah, man, I'll just say, like, you look at who they're able to get on campus, and I think Florida State's always been able to get talented guys on campus. They've never really had a shortage of getting these guys on campus. It's just now landing them. But I think that you have so much proof of concept now. And I think another thing that's going to be big too is, like, say, for instance, the NFL draft comes up and you put 6, 8, 10 guys in the NFL draft. That's another chip that you can add to the proof of concept pot there. And so, like, now that you see this thing, it's just going to keep ramping up, and you're going to see them start to land some of these guys because you have the proof of concept. And, I had put out something the other day just talking about what Mike Norvell has done. And when you just look at the blue chip ratio, including the transfers, because again, man, I think when you look at modern day recruiting, you have to factor into transfers in there. But that blue chip ratio has been on a steady rise. And so now you're starting to see these bigger guys where it's not like, cool, we got him on campus. It's like, okay, we have a legitimate shot. Like Jamie French, you feel like you're probably in the driver's seat there. Whereas before it's like with the Jeremiah Smith kid, you're like, hopefully, we got a fighting chance, but now you're the favorite. And so I think, man, it's this 25 class, like we knew 24 was loaded. 25 could really be that one that gets Florida State to that upper echelon of talent level.
Yeah, no, I definitely can. I mean, Zayden Walker, you just mentioned it. That'd be a huge get. I mean, he's a top 10 recruit in the country right now. Florida State's already doing well, though, in 2025, even if they don't, get Zayden Walker. I mean, right now, the number 6 class in the country, according to On3. So Solomon Thomas, top 30 recruit in the country, offensive tackle. He's already committed to Florida State. They've got some guys already. Javion Hilson, the edge defender, already committed to Florida State as well. You mentioned Jamie French, decommitted from Alabama. I would say Florida State is probably the favorite for him right now. Florida State getting some big time guys. Now, Zayden Walker, I will say, the linebacker, heavy favorite to go to Georgia right now. I think they're kind of in the driver's seat. I think Florida State's kind of hoping that they can convince him otherwise. But otherwise, I think Florida State, there's a bunch of guys that they're looking at right now. I think this will be yet another great class for Mike Norvell in 2025.
You can't break our heart by losing a linebacker because we're just not used to getting them in the first place. So.
Well, look, hey,
I like that Wallace kid, right? I like the Wall. I think, I think he's a really good kid. You can get him. I mean, he's 4-star. Look, I'm not saying you can't get the,
No, he's a top 50 kid in the nation. He's a stud.
I'm just saying, let's.
Yeah, no, Taven Wallace. I mean, you could Zayden Walker would be great, but when's the last time we've had a Sean Murphy? We haven't had a Sean Murphy in our linebacker room since we brought in Kalen DeLoach. And if you can add a Taven Wallace, you absolutely love it. That would be great. He's been getting crystal ball to Florida State. He's 6'1", 210 pounds. Our kind of issue has been it's kind of rare the linebackers that fit Randy Shannon what he wants to do. It's hard to find them. They just haven't been the 4 and 5-star guys. So a guy like Taven Wallace, you got to land that guy. I hate to say that, but it's no, you get a guy like that in, and boom, that's big points for Randy. And all of a sudden, your linebacker room is set for a couple of years. You've got between Blake Nicholson, Omar Graham Jr., John Murphy. If you can get a Taven Wallace in, you'll be good. But sorry.
Usman Kroma is another guy I want to bring up too. The running back. He's the number 2 running back in the country. Really physical runner. Florida State's kind of in the driver's seat for him too. So, I mean, that'd be a huge get if you can get Usman Kroma, who's, like I said, is top 40 overall recruit in the country, number 2 running back. I mean, that's another guy blue chip guy that Florida State can add to their 2025 class too.
For sure.
Max, I did want to ask you, I forgot to ask about the running back that we took in the portal because, for me, I'm really high on him. I kind of wanted to get your opinion of him, the Williams kid that we took at running back from Alabama.
Oh, Royo Williams? Yeah. Yeah. So he's a guy, another Alabama. It's weird saying, okay, he's hasn't really done much. Because again, a lot of those guys that happens to them. But Royo Williams was a highly rated kid coming out of high school. Didn't really get too much run at Alabama in his freshman year, but again, it's Alabama. So if you're recruited by Nick Saban, that's pretty much enough for a lot of people. But he did pretty good. I mean, he had he did well as a receiver. He caught 11 of his 12 targets this year for about 60 yards. So he's a good receiving back. He had about 580 yards actually for Alabama as well this year as well. So I think he wasn't the lead back. Jace McClellan was that for them this year. But I think Royo Williams is a huge get for Florida State, especially when you're losing a guy like Trey Benson.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Kind of gives me those vibes. I don't know. He's big. He can, catch the ball too. To me, I think that was a perfect replacement for a Trey Benson.
Yeah, I think it's a huge replacement. And that's something, NFL running backs are kind of getting devalued in today's game. Yeah. College running backs are not. You need a good college running back. They are very valuable. I think Royo Williams, he produced a lot for Alabama this year. Like I said, almost 600 rushing yards. I think he's a guy that will probably be the day one number 1 running back for Florida State next year.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I honestly, that's why I wanted to ask you, because I kind of feel like he was almost being a little overlooked just because of the Marvin Jones Jr.'s coming in and, the Jaylen Brown, the wide receiver, because of the flashier ones and linebackers, because we've been on our hands and knees begging for one, you know. So I feel like he kind of got like a little overlooked. So I just wanted to ask you about him because I really like that kid. I love that addition. I think it's huge, especially, you know, like losing a Trey Benson, right? I mean, the way Coach Norvell runs his system, you know, you usually see the two backs, and I kind of love that with Royo Williams coming in, because I just think, losing Trey Benson is terrible. Look, and I'm old enough to remember when Florida State fans were upset about us taking Trey Benson, by the way, guys. I remember that. I do. I wasn't one, but I remember that.
Just before.
So,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I was kind of done.
Okay, sorry. I was just going to say, just to be clear, like I said earlier, that Taven Wallace kid, he is a number 57 overall. He's a .9725 athlete. He's actually a Georgia kid from Jessup, Georgia, so right in our neighborhood, the number 8 linebacker in the nation. But we were talking about it, NFL, and kind of how that helps high school recruiting. We won't talk about kind of like the first line of the PFF grades in the first team, because it was like really kind of devoid of FSU guys, but we won't get mad. We know how, you know, numbers and stuff shift around. But who really impresses you? There's about 8 to 10 guys who will end up, whether it be draft or undrafted free agents. Who really sticks out for you as far as the guys that are draft eligible this year for the Noles?
I mean, obviously you start with Jared Verse. He's the guy that coming out of Albany. I liked his tape at Albany. I remember when he was coming out, I was like, hey, this guy could be something. And he blew up way more than I even imagined for Florida State, but he's great. Keon Coleman, I know a lot of people are some people are getting a little bit lower on him. I still think he's a freak athlete. There are concerns about his ability to separate at the next level. But I do like him a lot. I love Johnny Wilson too. He had some drop issues this year, obviously, but I still think he could be a really good contested catch receiver. Trey Benson, some guys that I really like that are underrated. I think Jarian Jones is a stud, man. He truly was. He was a monster for Florida State. I think honestly, you look at that D line, you look at the receiving core, everything was great for Florida State this year. The best part of that team, in my opinion, was the secondary. I think that secondary was so good, and why I thought they could have competed with Texas or Washington in the college football playoff, or anyone, was because of that secondary. And I think they had the secondary to really challenge those teams. I think Jarian Jones, I think Renardo Green's a really good player as well. I think there's a lot of guys. I mean, I love Fentrell Cypress as well. I think their group of corners was, I don't think it was the best in the country, because I think Alabama with Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terry Arnold have that, distinction. But after that, it'd be hard pressed for me not to pick Florida State. I think their secondary is phenomenal. I think I'm really excited about those guys as probably day 3 picks. I think they're going to be steals in the NFL draft whenever they go.
That's my thing. I feel like Florida State, that's what people don't understand. We've done more with less the past couple of years. We've taken diamonds from the rough. We've taken a guy like Trey Benson that people didn't want because he was injured. It's just like, wait till y'all see in 2024 and 25 what Mike Norvell does with the A1, like, cream of the crop guys, the top. You know what I mean? You talk about blue chip ratio. Does it matter? Does it not? At the end of the day, you've got to get it done. Experience matters and stuff. But the level of athlete is just steadily creeping up. We're almost to an hour. Actually, we are like right at exactly an hour if we had started right on time. So I'm going to open up the bat line on the bottom of the screen. If you have any questions for me, Jesse, Jen, any takes you want to get off, if you want to get made fun of, whatever the case may be, call in and we will take your call and get you live on the air with the Renegade Rundown.
Basketball games at the half, guys.
Syracuse is up, right?
Syracuse up by 1 right now, yeah.
What the heck, man? We're going to have to kick you off the show.
I know, man. I'm still looking at it right now.
No, we're all right.
Do you guys know that when Cal left Memphis for Kentucky, Leonard Hamilton was so close to being the new Memphis basketball head coach?
Really?
Interesting.
But
yeah.
But the Memphis fan base pulled like a Tennessee fan base and had like oh yes they did. And I'm sitting here now. I mean, after Hamilton went on that run and he's doing it, I know it's not as great now, but like I was looking at my Memphis fan just going.
That Clemson game was really disappointing the other day. I mean, they shot, I think they hit 1 of 12 on 3 points or something like that. It was really disappointing, but they had been on a pretty good run. I know they got Carolina coming up too, who, I'm not going to hold my breath on that one, but it's been nice to see them improve, because last year, the thing about like Ham is he's pretty consistently good, but when he's bad, he's historically bad. So, I still hate that the 2020 season was like probably the closest he would have got to winning a national championship, and it kind of got, it got taken away from him. But they've definitely improved a lot. And as long as they can stay healthy, I think they can find themselves in the ACC tournament.
I don't think people understand how good of a recruiter Leonard Hamilton is.
Yeah, he's a builder, and COVID messed it up.
What I was trying to tell Memphis fans is that guy could get these kids to go to Florida State. Can you imagine what he could have done with the talent in Memphis? Like, I don't even want to think about it. Like the Memphis local talent is so unbelievable in basketball. And if he was able to come in here, I just
and you're talking about
Memphis.
And you're talking about a style of play where you don't really get significant minutes in his offense. They rotate so much. So, like, the fact that he gets those guys in here, I mean, I hope he goes out on top. I mean, I know that he's getting up there, but I hope he at least makes one more decent run before it's his time.
All right, guys. Well, we got our first caller. You're live with the Renegade Rundown. What you got for us?
Hey, it's Vaughn from Pennsylvania. What you guys were saying about the quarterback rankings, everybody's going to know who DJU really actually is when he balls out this year. He's not going to be number 16. He's going to be up there in the top at least 5 or 10. But anyway, I like the show. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Appreciate it, man. So just a shout out there. Yeah, we agree, man. He's going to show him what's up. And I agree with everything y'all said about Leonard. It's just a shame that COVID had to come when it did, because he's a builder and he had been recruiting. He had started recruiting on another level and stacked 2 or 3 classes together, and it was everything came to its pinnacle, and we had this great team. I legitimately think that we were winning the title that year. I know that's biased, and everybody says, "Oh, of course you say that," but I mean, we were unreal. Like, I forget what our record was, but we were like on a 20-something game winning streak at one point during that year. You had like Jonathan Isaac and all these different guys. Maybe that's a year before, but long story short, it's tough for Leonard to try to. He basically had to start from scratch over again in this modern climate. It's just, he's an old school guy, but I wouldn't count him out. Maybe he's got it figured out now. Who knows? Maybe he'll go on a run, but. Yeah. I just feel like you kind of have to sacrifice basketball, for football to be good.
It had to happen.
I don't know what you're talking about. That sounds ridiculous, because I'm going to live with they would have won it in whatever the COVID year, and I'm going to live with it that they would have won it in football this year because they weren't allowed in. So
yeah, that's fair.
There we go.
That is absolute fact.
I'm going to be like a Delulu Miami fan for like the rest of my life now. That's what I'm going to do.
That is true. Brad Power says Charlie Wood was the best quarterback in New York at one point in time.
That's true.
He was at point guard.
When he was playing for the Knicks, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was. He was the best. Probably was the best quarterback in New York at that point. That's still so crazy, man. The Heisman Trophy winner says, "No, I'm not going to play in the NFL. I'm going to play in the NBA and succeed at it." That's still one of the coolest. That's unbelievable. It's one of the coolest athlete stories probably of all time. Is Charlie Ward, I think.
Yeah, well, they weren't like modeling offenses around a Charlie Ward back in those days. So he said, "I'll go to the NBA and stay healthy and get my money," and he did it. And he's one of the coolest people you'll ever meet.
He would succeed a lot in today's game. He'd be phenomenal in today's day and age. But I just can't imagine winning a Heisman Trophy and be like, "Oh, I'm going to go pro in the National Basketball Association and like be an all-star level point guard for the Knicks." Like, that's just
unheard of.
He was the man. Like, that's the coolest life I think you could possibly live, honestly.
You almost wish you could have seen him try both. Like, because we've seen the baseball thing with Dion and Bo. I know the timing probably doesn't work out, but the NBA season's so long. Like, he could play half a season or something, and then go to camp.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do that for sure. But do a Dion thing where you play World Series one night, play Monday Night Football 2 nights later. Like, you can do that, yeah.
All right, where are we going with this thing, man? We want to talk FSU or ACC power rankings. Guys, don't forget the numbers up there as well.
They had Florida State number 1 because they won the conference, and until they've lost a game, I guess.
Then they had Louisville number 2, Miami number 3. North Carolina State after that, Clemson, Virginia Tech, SMU, Georgia Tech.
Wait, I'm sorry, they have Miami 3. Why?
Miami number 3. Well, that's a good question. That is a good question. Personally, I'd put Clemson over them. You could argue Virginia Tech. I would definitely put Georgia Tech over them because I saw them beat them, and I know what their passing game is coming back. UNC, they're right there. I believe Miami and UNC are like you could flip-flop them. I think Duke's going somewhere. They'll probably be better than them. We'll see. It's like one of those things where it's just people and media, I feel like, can't get out of their head the level of talent and like the Jimmies and the Joes Miami has, and it tells you they should be like a top 40 team in the nation year in, year out.
I know.
They never are.
It's just, I mean, I get it. They got Cam Ward, congratulations. I don't know that a guy who fumbled it 17 times is going to fix that by going to play for Mario. I think that's obviously not going to be that's not going to be fixed there. I think updating or upgrading your draft stock and playing for that offense, good luck. But again, good luck to the kid. He's a really good quarterback. I wish he had gone to like Ohio State because he probably really could have improved his draft stock had he gone to a more, capable coaching staff. I feel bad for him. But I'm sure he's still going to get drafted. I'm sure he'll play fine. I just think Miami's just going to win 8 games, and that's just I'm until they show me different. Like I'm not going to sit here and predict just because they have good players, because they've had good players for a long time, and they do nothing.
Yeah, that's something that I've really been on forever with Miami. It's like, I'm not saying the potential's not there. It's just I have to see it first. And I'm, we've talked about Florida versus the Miami conversation and stuff like that. I feel like Napier's a decent coach. He's just been really in a unbearable situation. I don't feel the same way with Mario Cristobal. You look at what he did at Oregon. His first 2 years, he was gifted Justin Herbert, one of the, a great college quarterback who really didn't even use him that well. But I was just doing something the other day because somebody had made a comment about Norvell. And so I was looking at some numbers. And when you look at like and George touched on this earlier, when you talk about what Mike Norvell has done at Florida State, he has not had per the 247 team composite talent rankings, he's never been inside the top 15 in his tenure at Florida State. So the fact that he's been able to do that with a lower talented team. So I went and looked at 2022 and 2023, and Mike Norvell against teams that have a higher talent ranking than him is 8-2. Against teams that have a lower team talent ranking, he's 19-2 over the last 2 years. In the same 2 years, and I understand Mario Cristobal, his first 2 years there, against teams that were ranked higher, he's 2-2, and he also lost to both of those teams that he beat, and he's 10-11 against teams with a lower talent ranking. So it's not like you're using that talent to go and just beat the crap out of it. I mean, you lost to Middle Tennessee State, for goodness sakes. Now a quarterback. Right. Like a quarterback will, that rivalry took off with them getting Manny Diaz. That's going to be a fun one to watch. Manny
going to come in there and beat that ass next year. I can promise
the heated Miami Duke rivalry, and I will say too, man, like, first off, I think
making t-shirts and shit. It's pathetic.
Malik Murphy I saw he went to Duke and I was like, do what? That was
I love that.
Huge win for that staff.
I trust Mike Elko, dude. Well, no, Mike Elko left. Who they even hire? What am I talking about? It's Manny freaking Diaz. Yeah. Revenge tour. Do they have Miami on the schedule?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that game, circle and highlight that one. We'll get your opinion on this, Max, because I think they messed up. I think they should have kept Manny and kept Brett Lashley right there for a couple more years. I think Miami had something going. I think they screwed the pooch. I think they didn't realize how good Florida State was and what Mike Norvell were beating. They just seen a 5-3 or a 4-5 team or whatever the case may be when we played them and beat them on that 4th and 14. I'm telling you, Bobby. Van Dyke was a Heisman candidate when he got there, when Cristobal showed up. And what is he now? He's ranked number 17 below DJ Ukulele. That's what's the crazy thing is. They put Ukulele, 247 Sports, put Ukulele and Van Dyke on the same line, basically. Have them tit for tat in the quarterback rankings. And that's pure disrespect to DJU. I can't believe
TVD would have been a first-round pick a couple years ago in a lot of way too early mock drafts. Now going to Wisconsin. I mean, I've always liked the tools he had there, but he just never took advantage of them. They have Xavier Restrepo there, receiver, who I think is a terrific receiver, slot receiver for Miami. But they lose some talent, man. And I love Cam Ward. I was fortunate enough to interview during the season, but he is a guy that is a roller coaster. He has some unbelievable plays, some plays that, frankly, maybe 2 or 3 other quarterbacks in the country can make as well. But he also, over the last 2 years, I believe, is leading the Power 5 in turnover-worthy plays. So he's a absolute roller coaster. I like him a lot. I think he's got a lot of potential. But as you guys mentioned, I mean, I don't know if Cristobal and his staff is the coach to help him unlock that potential truly. And, I mean, you mentioned Justin Herbert. I sent this tweet out last night. No quarterback in college football, in my opinion, has ever been misused more than Justin Herbert. I mean,
Speak on it, Max.
He was bad at Oregon. I didn't like him at all as a prospect because I was like, this guy was inaccurate. But then you look back and you watch the tape and you look how great he is with the Chargers. I do think he's a really good NFL quarterback. I know there's a lot of debate about that as well. I think he's a top 5 to 10 quarterback in the league, definitely. But he was a guy that, you know, they put him in this horizontal-based scheme where he wasn't using his big arm downfield. I mean, they really pigeonholed him in that scheme. I think that was, again, I think it was misused more than any quarterback I've ever seen in college. And I think, you know, me not liking him as a prospect was more because of what he was at Oregon, what he was allowed to do at Oregon more than what he was capable of doing. So I just don't know if Cam Ward, I know NIL played a huge part for Cam Ward. And I know that's probably the biggest bag that he got was Miami, because I know they shell out money like nobody else right now. But I'm a little worried about Cam Ward, about how he'll do at Miami. I still think he'll be good. I still think he'll be a solid quarterback, but I just don't know. He's a guy that you kind of need to mold. I'm not sure he's going to be molded into the star at Miami, whereas maybe Florida State, I know he's looking there, or Ohio State, they probably would have done a little bit of a better job of developing
That's
it.
the one. I feel like something is odd there, because I've always heard that's where Cam Ward wanted to go, was Ohio State. Ohio State didn't make him the offer.
No, weird.
Yeah.
They just didn't want him.
I think it was all NIL with Cam Ward. I think there's a lot of reports coming out that it really was all about NIL. And I think Miami, what they are giving to recruits, I mean, I think Miami probably made the biggest offer out of anyone.
You hit the head on it when you talked about, like, it depends on where you go. Like Jen is saying, you go to Iowa State. I like Cam at Florida State, but at Miami, what they're going to make him to do the same as Herbert, I just don't see his talent shining. It's going to be a bunch of, like, the stuff close to the line of scrimmage and throwing outs and stuff. It's just like perfect opportunities for these turnovers and shit to happen. Sorry, Jen, I don't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, you didn't cut me off at all. I was just going to say, it's just, I get it about the NIL, but I mean, look at what Ohio State gave out to, like, a Will Howard, who Miami told Will Howard no, right? Miami told Will Howard no, and Ohio State had him circled. Like, that's who they wanted. They weren't really talking to Cam Ward. I don't know. Something seems off here to me, and I don't know. I can't put my finger on it.
It's weird because he declared for the NFL draft and then 2 weeks later said, actually, I'm going to go to Miami. I think what happened with him is that he declared for the draft thinking he'd be a lot higher. He was not going any higher than day 3, in my opinion. He would have been a 4th, 5th round pick probably. He probably saw that and said, okay, maybe I should go get NIL, maybe even make more money at Miami than he would have in the NFL, because he's been a day 3 pick. I don't love the fit in Miami for Cam Ward. I don't. Yeah. I understand the money is probably the best there. He's got a great receiver in Xavier Restrepo. He's got a up and coming offensive line too. But coaching wise, I'm a little worried about Cam Ward in Miami. I still think he's a supremely talented kid. He's an awesome kid too. Yeah. One of my favorite interviews I've done. Really funny guy, but I'm a little worried for him at Miami. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I wanted DJU from the beginning, and it wasn't to do with anything about Cam Ward's ability. It was more about that's where DJ wanted to be. And I think that if you have one school in mind, I think you might play a little harder. It's a little bit different. I don't know. And maybe it's the mother in me, maybe it's the empathy in me if I actually have it. But I wanted him from the get-go. I think he got a bad deal at Clemson. And then obviously he played so well this year. And then for his coach to just leave, I think he was kind of stuck in 2 bad situations that he wasn't in his control. And and Florida State was the only school he wanted to be at. So yeah, I love that option. I love that we were the only school he wanted, so bring it on. And I love the fact that we get to beat Clemson at Florida State this year with DJU. Like, come on, This is going to be so fun. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, I think you have a point, and that's something that I said about DJU. I think when you got a guy that wants to be here, it's 4th and 1, game on the line. Who's going to duck their shoulder, take that pop, and go get the first down? You know, if Cam's there for a bag, like I just see that out of DJ. And I echo what Max says about the risk reward with a guy like Cam Ward with the turnovers and the sacks are just it scared me away a little bit because I'm like Jen, I was on Team DJU from the beginning. I just feel like Florida State is to a point they didn't need a little bit more of that wild card quarterback. They just needed a guy who could come in and be that kind of game manager, a guy who can run the ball. And let's not forget, like, I mean, this guy's got a cannon for an arm still. And if you give him the guys like a Malik Benson that can take the top off of a defense, then, you know, I think that's something that he can take advantage of. I think putting him in a better scheme with better coaching and better receivers around him could really unlock that potential. I think that obviously Cam Ward's going to be good for Miami. I don't doubt that at all because I feel like, you know, obviously that's the most important position in football at the game. But you also talk about a guy, Cam Ward, who's never really been a part of a overly winning team. I mean, especially at the Power 5 level. And at least DJ has been in those big games. But one thing I will share when you just talk about Miami in general, I think this is a put up or shut up year for Cristobal. It's year 3. You've got your guys. You've got a talented roster. You got your quarterback now. This is who this is your guy. So you wanted. Now's the time to win. And when you talk about Mario Cristobal, this was some of the other numbers that I pulled up the other day. Without Justin Herbert, he's 19-19 against Power 5 teams. 3-9 in ranked games, 0-3 in bowls, 16-14 in conference plays, 7-2 in 2021 against teams that were 36-50. So without Justin Herbert, he's never really done a whole lot. Even the year, I think it was 2020 that they made the Rose Bowl, they played like 5 games. So, you know, again, I have to wait and see. I think he will be good for them, better than the situation they walked into the season with. But I'm just not sold on either side of that relationship, a guy who's there for money and a guy, you know, in a team that hasn't really shown the ability. I mean, you, again, like George mentioned, you turned a projected first-round NFL draft pick into a Wisconsin Badger that's going to hand the ball off, you know, 30 times a game. So it's going to be interesting, man. He'll be better for him, but I'm all on DJU more than I would Cam Ward. I just think he puts Florida State where they need to be.
Look, I was in love with the sexiness of a Cam Ward, the flash plays, the potential of down the field, all this stuff. I was in love with it, but I've always been right there. It's a 1A or 1B. And looking at it retrospectively, look, I totally came on board. The thing is, you talk about the fit. Like Cam Ward, there was a chance, if you get Cam Ward, you might can get a Jeremiah Smith, which that would have been great, flashy, the number one, guy in the country. But getting DJU, we've opened up an entire door to these different Samoan players and guys who just really are spiritual and want to get their ass, be a part of a brotherhood and go forward. And I think it's been a bigger help. It's going to be a bigger glue piece. It's going to be the best thing. And also, y'all talked about DJU, what he had to deal with at Clemson when he was still beating our ass in Miami's class a couple of years ago. He was in a backward situation, an outdated kind of offense. Well, he goes out to a new, we're going to have some fun. He has fun on offense, but he has a terrible offensive line. They're not a winning program. Now he gets to step in a situation in an offense built for playmakers where he is going to be put into a situation that it can succeed in. I just feel like people don't understand if you could take any of these quarterbacks around the country and plug them in with Mike Norvell, you'd be surprised. They'd be much more successful, obviously, with a Mario Cristobal, because that's somebody. She's just like, whatever. He's like Rust-Oleum. He's like, just corrosive for quarterbacks. But yeah, Mike Norvell's the opposite. And DJU is going to surprise the absolute hell out of people. He's going to be a beast, and I can't wait. And again, guys, y'all are being shy, but the number's on the bottom, 850-495-1906. We've always got 200 people in here. The line's open. If you don't want to call, you can text in, get your questions in. If you want us to keep going much longer, we're already at an hour 20. So like I said, get those questions in and we will keep the conversation rolling and have fun. Thanks to Brad Powers for the $9.99 super chat. Of course, letting everybody know that petty is Jen's favorite color as always. And also memberships, guys. The memberships are there. They're available. The merch store's open, all kinds of fun stuff. So all that stuff's there for you guys to contribute to. So we sure appreciate you guys.
I will say to the Miami fans or whatnot that trash DJU for coming, Florida State. Oh, he's not better or whatnot. Look, man, he put up 322 and 3 touchdowns last time they played Miami at Clemson. So, I mean, he's shown that he can put up some numbers on your defense. So you might want to watch what you say. And I like what you guys say too about us getting Clemson at Doak. I live in the Charlotte area, so I can't make every single regular season game. But, man, I'm like, that Clemson game circled. I have to be at that one because it's going to be fun to watch. And, no one knows what goes on in a player's head. But when everyone kind of threw the blame on Clemson struggles on DJU's back, and we've seen that it really was not him that was the problem. They threw for less yards and less touchdowns this year. I think he is going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder to kind of prove some people wrong in that game. And then, George, when you talk about the Samoan pipeline that they're building, I think Sione is going to be a player that, and people are going to have to watch out for him. He was all Pac-12
He's the load, man.
Right?
He can play inside.
Right, all Pac-12 2 years in a row. When you look at his, I know a lot of people talk about the 1.5 sacks that he had, and it wasn't really a high production number. But when you look at the number of pressures that he have, and shout out to Max. I love PFF. I'm a PFF subscriber, have been for years. I love PFF. When you look at the
hell
pressures,
of a tool, man.
Right, like he was. What his pressure rate would have been, or his amount of pressures in 2023 would have been third on the team behind Jared Verse and I believe maybe Patrick Payton. So this is a guy who he can create plays, and I think he's going to be a veteran presence on that defensive line. I'll be honest, I would really like to see us get another defensive tackle. I would not be mad at that as a bit. But, man, I think they've really reloaded this defensive line, and I'm excited to see this. We got so many edge players to be excited about. Again, Marvin Jones Jr., the kid from West Virginia, Byron Turner was not bad last year. Of course, everybody wants to – that ridiculous comment by Shane Beamer talking about Gilbert Edmonds.
Oh, my gosh.
The starter that walked away from Florida State. No, man, he played literally 50% less snaps at Florida State than he did at South Carolina, and he got recruited over. He was not going to be a starter here. So, I'm excited about the edge position, though, man. They've loaded up.
Well, I got a question here. It's not a question. It's a guy pretty much saying he wants to defend Cam Ward, saying he only went to Miami for money, is attacking his character. Look, guys, I'm a Cam Ward fan. Like I said, I was attracted to his upside, and if he could have came here, but nobody just chooses the Miami and what their situation is between that and Florida State's and Ohio State and some of these other schools. Yeah. Nobody chooses that or decides he would have went to Miami when Florida State didn't work out if it wasn't about the money. He wouldn't have went to the NFL and then damn, just dragged us. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe he just had Miami in his heart the whole time. But it doesn't add up, man. And another question, if the ACC concedes, when is the soonest FSU fans can expect to be in the Big Ten? We've said 2025 the whole time, and as long as Florida State announces they're out by August 15th, or it's actually August 14th at 11:59 before the 15th, they can be in the Big Ten by 2025. Now, FSU does have in their suit something that would make it retroactive to where we could be in there in 2024. But I don't think there's any chance that that's going to happen because you would have to actually go to court. Florida State would have to just get a flawless victory and win the whole court case and all that for that to happen. No way in the settlement would the ACC relinquish that in the settlement. They're going to get that final year and figure out how they can sponge money out of you. But that's where we are on that.
So that move by Florida State was more of a strong arm move.
Yeah, you got to put it
to a settlement. Yeah, I mean that's what that was. There's no way they would. They're already going to Dublin in 2024. They've got the schedule pretty much set. We already know that, and playing in the Big Ten in 2024 is just not going to happen. So this was more of a strong arm move by them, and that's great. I mean, that's a fine move by them, and I appreciate it. Hats off to it, but that's really what that was. Yeah.
I will say too, talking about Cam Ward versus DJ. Yes, I liked DJ. That doesn't mean I'm trashing Cam Ward. He has a turnover problem, and a sack problem, but he's still. I mean, if he'd have been at Florida State, I'm not going to be that guy that puts on a different hat, just because he goes to a different team. But I'm looking right now just because I was curious because I couldn't honestly remember. When's the last time Miami had a quarterback drafted? And right now I saw Brad Kaya in the 6th round in 2017. And I'm at 2006, and I'm still not 2005. I'll let you know when I find the next guy, but I'm gonna probably.
Damn,
Alicia was that?
All the
time.
time. normal people want to borrow ketchup and sugar. You come over here talking about, can I borrow your car? Get the hell on, Felicia.
That was Felicia's son. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that was his mom, and I'll never forget when I believe it was Timmy Jernigan knocked out his molar on that big hit.
Oh, and handed him his teeth
back.
back.
Yeah,
oh yeah.
But we had another super chat, $5 super chat from Terry Vlashin. Joe Mauer elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame today. How about that? The Florida State quarterback that never was, Joe Mauer. Man, I think we get a national championship or two if Joe Mauer decides to play quarterback. Joe was offered a full ride to FSU, but chose baseball. Joe and Chris Winkie went to the same high school. What are the odds of that? Boy, howdy.
Yeah, I think Joe made the right call, honestly. One of the greatest catchers of all time. I know he's a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, but I think he made the right call there. But yeah, congrats to him, man. That was pretty cool.
Absolutely. And bam, Jen Santee gifts another 5 memberships. And don't let us keep you, man, Chad. Like we go on and on with this thing. I know you're wanting to watch I don't know if that game ended or whatever, but you're more than welcome if you got to catch the game or whatever. But we usually go for about 2 hours. You're more than welcome to stay the whole time. Also, I'm trying to I believe we may have a special caller here in a second.
I will say, just on a quick comment on the subject for those who care. I think Florida State baseball is going to take a big step this year. They had a top 5 transfer class that brought in a couple of big arms. Year 2 under Link Jarrett. So I'm excited to see where the round ball sports go again. Also, shout out to FSU softballs, a couple of top 5 rankings to start the season. I know a lot of people, like you mentioned, George, some people are Florida State football only, some are all Florida State sports. But if you're a Seminole and you don't appreciate that women's softball team, oh my gosh. I mean, that's a
beast,
awesome program, and they got 5 players in the D1 top 100. So it's gonna be a good year for them too.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, those girls are just outside of Oklahoma.
Yeah, but that's like
craziness. That's like I don't even know what to call that. It's crazy up there what they do.
Yeah, that's nice. A juggernaut. And then
it looks like it's tied now. I guess it's tied.
Yeah, with like 12 minutes left or something.
Probably find a way to blow it, probably. But
actually, I got to run, guys. I got another pod I got to be on. But I appreciate you guys having me on again, though.
Thank you so much. Man. I love all your insight on our transfers and everything, and it's always great. Like I said, females out there, if you ever want to learn about football, please go follow Max. That's where I send you guys to, because I don't have time to teach you. He can do a much better job.
Yeah, make sure you let everybody know exactly where they can find you. If you got anything to pump up, do that too before we get out of
here. At Max Chadwick CFB on Twitter, and then also pff.com. All my articles are there. And then obviously, Preferred Walk On. We host that about once a week now. We're doing for the off season. So yeah, find that Preferred Walk On YouTube, anywhere you get your podcast to.
Absolutely appreciate you, brother. And anytime you just hit us up, you're more than welcome to join.
Yeah, of course. All right, thanks for having me on, guys.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah.
And then there were 3 guys. The line is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Y'all are still piling in here. We got 206 people. 850-495-1906. Get your phone calls in. If you got any questions, anything you want us to talk about, that's how you do it. Call the phone.
Do we want to talk about Dexter Carter Jr. decommitting? Because I
don't Devin Carter. Yeah. Well, I know. Yeah. There's some stories and stuff coming out of this weekend that I can't really talk about, but unfortunately, Devin Carter has decided that he wants to move on. It's the 2026 kid. We're probably in the best. It's probably the best thing, to happen now. Let him go somewhere else, and then you can recruit him back next year. It's like it doesn't usually work out a lot of times when you have these people outside of a Derwin James or. You get lucky every once in a while, but yeah, I think we're in a better position now with them decommitted than we were with them committed, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't put too much into a 2026 recruit.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't really get too excited about that anyway. At the same time, like, yeah, you can get excited about, or you can say maybe it's a little bit concerning that he's a legacy kid, but that doesn't a whole lot carry. It doesn't really carry the weight I think that maybe it used to. I mean, obviously you got Earl Little Jr. who just came over here, who's a Miami legacy. You had Marvin Jones Jr. who went to Georgia, who was a Florida State legacy. Now he's back. So like you said, George, you can always get him. You can get him later on. But I mean, it's a 2026 kid, and you look at what Florida State's doing. They're loading up the receiver room. a lot of these recruits are just coming in. So, he's a good player, but you may see the writing on the wall that you're going to walk into a stacked room. So we'll see how it plays out. One thing I will touch on, I saw just floating by in the comments about Mike Martin Sr. Nothing so far right now. He's in hospice care. He does have some dementia issues and stuff like that. So,
but he's stable. He's stable physically.
Yeah, and dementia. Hospice care. I work in the healthcare field. It's just really about making sure you have quality of life towards the end of things. So, obviously, big prayers up to 11 and his family as well. But that's the last update I've seen.
Absolutely. It's scary how quick that stuff can change, because
yes,
when you think about something like that, it's something that, in my mind, it's like something that develops over 20 years, and then all of a sudden. But I mean, he was just coaching baseball just not that long ago. So
right, yep, for sure.
Prayers up to the Martin family, and we just hope that he can be as comfortable as possible as he receives his treatment. So prayers up to the family.
What about Michigan? What about Michigan? You think?
Oh yeah,
I think they're hiring
gone.
Sharon Moore. I don't think this job, if Harbaugh leaves, which apparently it looks like he's getting a second interview with the Chargers. So I love the drama involved with NFL coaching hires, because they're like, we have interviewed this person. It's like a game show almost. I love it.
Oh,
I
love
it.
It's the opposite of college, where they're trying to be on the low. It's like, nope, this person interviewed this person. We said we interviewed him. This black guy, we interviewed our black person. It's the most condescending shit. That Rooney Rule. It's like, I forget what team they were like, oh, well, we did it. Oh, was it Adam Schefter? Somebody tweeted out, such and such interviewed, therefore meeting their quota, sufficing the Rooney Rule. It's like, oh my gosh.
I don't know what was worse. Was it the Yahoo one that said, who did they have as Alex Atkins in that picture?
Oh my gosh, I can't even remember. I know exactly what you're talking about. It was a Georgia. It was a Georgia coach or something.
No,
but
it wasn't. It was a former Florida State coach, Woodson, Marcus Woodson. I think they put in.
I was thinking of a whole different.
Atkins, and it was
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, it's. Yikes. I saw I forget the NFL guy, Adam Schefter or whatever that was like, and they've met it's like, bro, did you have to put that? Like, that sounds so terrible, man. Like,
it's patronizing. It's like the worst thing. I can't even imagine.
I know, but you know what I will say about the Jim Harbaugh situation is, there was some smoke there for a minute that people thought Brian Kelly was going to go take the Michigan job, and I get
he wants it.
He's a Northern guy. He just overhauled that staff at LSU.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I don't think he wants it, and I think the other thing is they're going to hire Sharon Moore.
He's publicly stated that's his dream school. He wants it. I don't know if he wants it right now. But we will see. It's definitely fun to talk about. It's like all the tea leaves. It's like, man. But yeah, from what I've seen, there's people really, really think Harbaugh's gone. I think he's going to the NFL.
I think Michigan's going to promote Sharon Moore because they're going to run into the same issue that Alabama just had. And nobody wants to follow Jim Harbaugh. They're going to let Sharon Moore go in there. And I think he's going to be successful. I don't think they lose a lot of players in the portal. Those players love him. They play for him. They play hard for him. And he's a pretty good recruiter. So I don't think Michigan really falls off from that. Now, however, how the team plays next year could be a big deciding factor, obviously, in that. And then I think you will have some candidates that will really then jump into that job pool, because right now, I think Michigan would have the same problem Alabama had. Who wants to follow Jim Harbaugh after winning a national championship?
Right.
No
Not
doubt.
a lot.
Tough shoes to fill.
That's why we didn't think anybody really wanted to go to Alabama, because who would want to follow Nick Saban? No, I agree. And just to touch on some things, I saw somebody ask me about baseball recruiting in the chat. I will say that they did have a top 10 class, according to different rankings, looking at Perfect Game. They had 13 recruits signed out of high school. 13 transfers came over, top 5 class there as well. They also added some new staff members. Rob Collison this year as a guy, kind of like a general manager guy. I think they were so banged up last year. They didn't have a lot of depth last year. They got 2 pitchers. I can't recall their name right now. I think one came from Central Florida. I mean, these guys could be really, really high-end guys if they develop, but I just wanted to touch on that. I happened to see it go past. I think the funny thing is when you look at the similarities to Link Jarrett versus Mike Norvell and how they got the program up, they had to go into the portal to do that. But that's, again, like we talk about the portal so much in football, you forget it's there for every sport. And so now baseball is able to take advantage of that too. So I think they're going to have a much better year. I mean, obviously Link's a good coach, and it's just, the situation that they had with Mike Martin Jr., it really wasn't a great locker room situation. So you didn't have a lot of people that wanted to play there. So now you're going to have an infusion of talent. So that's going to help FSU baseball out a lot this year.
Well, we have another caller on the line. You're live with the Renegade Rundown.
Hey guys. So, I've been kind of saying it since the snub. I'm just going to claim a national title for FSU this year anyway. But with the allegations that Michigan has, do you think anybody else is going to, if Michigan ends up vacating their title, do you think anybody else is going to recognize FSU as a title, or are you guys going to choose to say, hey, we're national champions, we never got the chance? Or what are your thoughts on that stuff?
Appreciate it, man. We will talk about it. Personally, I say no, just because, especially with the loss of Georgia, even though it was messed up the way it is, that would be, it's just too far gone. Some things could have possibly rolled right where you could have done that, but in this situation, no. That would go to somebody else besides us. It would go to Washington or whoever else. I'm not sure if y'all have anything to say on that.
I mean, I clowned UCF entirely too much to claim anything that, that we didn't actually win on the field. So I think like out of respect for that, because, right before they made the jump to the Big 12, man, they were arrogant at UCF, and we kind of went back and forth with them on Twitter a lot. But I will say that as far as it goes, I think with Jordan Travis, had the injury of never happened, I will go to the grave. You will never be able to convince me that Florida State would not have won the national championship in 2023 with Jordan, because I think Florida State's defense was as good as any defense in the playoffs. I know Michigan technically had the number 1 ranked scoring defense. Look at how many bad Big Ten offenses that they played. But at the same time, I think even without Jordan Travis, I think Florida State could have competed for a national championship, because Tate, with, obviously he was out for the ACC title game, but with a month to come back, the offensive line getting healthy was, I think, something that really didn't get talked about enough, even in the Orange Bowl. I mean, they gave up half as many sacks against Georgia, as they did Louisville. So them getting healthy, I still think you would have had a good, quarterback as at least the performance you got from Jalen Milroe, and at least in the national championship game that you got from J.J. McCarthy. So, with Jordan, yeah, I think they win. Can we claim it? No. But I think that without him, I still think they would have had a chance. I still think they would have ended up in the national championship game.
We got a good one here. A good one. And it's so good. It's so good, I'll read it. Hey, bud, long-time listener. I was just curious. How long have you been sucking cock? Thanks. Appreciate the question, guys. Never got started, but whatever gets your kick, Mr. Canes fan. We're sorry if we hurt your feelings. You could be like Bobby, and we can talk it out. We can really have a conversation. But yeah, that stuff was funny. When you get a good joke in, or you really slip insult into an otherwise completely innocuous text, you get me. I'll read it. It was pretty funny, so I'll give credit where it's due. But again, guys, give us a call if you want a question.
You can tell it's talking season again, because Miami fans have, the roaches have come out from under the cabinet, or whatever, so to speak, come out of the woodwork, and again, off-season champs. Here it is again. It's just like it's like watching someone stick their foot in a bear trap for 20 straight years. It's like you haven't learned to just maybe be quiet for like one off-season and let things play out. But
there's something we can talk about. What about Georgia self-reporting today in football? And Chris and James alluded to this. I kind of just smiled when we were talking about it, but all of a sudden, we talked about it. So Alex Atkins literally just gave one dude a ride just so that he could meet somebody, and we're getting all this. You knew that couldn't be the worst thing that happened in all this NIL transfer portal craziness the past couple of years. Well, all of a sudden you hear the Rashada investigation is opened up. We know that eventually something's going to happen in Miami with all the BS they had. Georgia self-reporting. This school doing this. We know Michigan has their shit going on. I feel like Florida State might have just been one of the cleanest schools there is, so they just got our little fraction off the top and got it done. So yeah, really curious. Wow, did I just see what I just saw? Oh my goodness, nothing. I thought you pulled your whole shirt up there for the crowd to see.
No. I was fixing it. No. Just fixing it. Just fixing.
All righty. Now we got
like
people. Now people are zooming into 300 times zoom and rewinding on the. Don't get me wrong. It would be great for the numbers. Just don't get us booted.
That's for the members
No.
only show.
I was fixing it. I'm getting a little cold. That's usually why I wear these that go off my shoulder, but now I'm getting a little cold. So I,
Yeah,
was
that's
fixing it, and it's like it's
that's
the
the
same
members only
skin
show.
color. I'm just saying.
That's what it is.
You got to be a platinum member for that show.
Right. That's the platinum. That's the
yeah.
platinum level.
I think you're right, though, man. Florida State was
Allison Burks. George is dreaming. You don't know nothing. But if you actually, if you threw your feet up on the screen, they'd be huge. But we could probably get like some big super chats off that. This thing goes up to 500. I'm just probably fucking you up. Your DMs are going to be a nightmare now. I'm sorry.
If you don't, look, my DMs are already messed up. Okay.
Can't get much worse, can it?
Hey, $20 is $20. What you gonna do?
Hey, I've had somebody ask me, for pictures of my feet, and he almost got to $1,000, and I was
Brad's already got $5 in. You're gonna have to do bigger numbers than that, Brad. I think you already know this.
$1,000. I'll send you a picture of my feet. I don't care. $1,000.
Well, look, I was like, if he gets to 1,000, I don't know.
Everybody's they're trolling me now. George is keeping a close eye on Jen's side of the screen. Huh? Guys, I'm a producer. I'm a professional. Okay, I'm trying to, I'm wearing different hats and earphones over here. Y'all give me a break. Jeez Louise, back to football.
I will say though, you talk about the self-reporting, and teams self-report a lot, but I think the thing that from what I've been hearing is that Florida State was the first kind of domino to fall. Like, the WWE meme with like the Undertaker where he sits up out of the casket. Like, I feel like the NCAA is trying to come back to life here all of a sudden. Like, where have you guys have just been dead for the last 10 years, but then they come back. And I think that Florida State was one of the first ones to get punished, but they're definitely not going to be the last. I think you're going to start to see a lot of this NIL stuff start to really get enforced. A lot of this stuff's going to come down. Georgia, I read, was a lot of level 3 violations.
God.
But, we'll see.
Brad, man. Jesus. Lord help me. That's a good one. That was a good one, Brad.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, man. So is there anything else you want to talk about? Y'all want to keep going for another 20 minutes? Y'all want to wrap it up? How are y'all feeling, crowd? Y'all aren't giving me any calls. Y'all were texting in for a little bit. We're dwindling down here. The bat line's on there, 850-495-1906. You can follow Jesse Coger at plantthespear.com or at plantthespear right here on YouTube, or at plantthespear1 over on X. Jen Santee is at Jen Santee 1890 over on X, or Jen Knoll 2013. You can find her like that. I'm Renegade Report 1 on Twitter. Here on the YouTube, it's at the Renegade Report. Very easy, just at the Renegade Report. We're here live 3 days a week, Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sundays. We're going to do a members only show later in the week. We're up over 100 members, so whoop, whoop, we're going to surprise that. We're going to celebrate that soon. We're very close to 2,000 subscribers. It's kind of slowed down here. Been a kind of slow week right now, so I don't know when we'll hit it. Maybe it'll be Sunday. Maybe it'll be Friday. Maybe it'll be next Tuesday. But whenever that happens, the following show or maybe one after that, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to give away money, merchandise, the whole 9 yards. We're going to have a fun time when we hit that major milestone. But again, if you have any questions, get them in at 850-495-1906. And Allison Burke says, also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, keep in mind the rest of the schedule does drop tomorrow.
That's right.
So that will be something to watch out for. Everybody, I'm sure, is excited about that. Man, just come on, ACC. Just drop the daggone schedule. This is just another thing with the ACC that just really...
They're really trying to drag it out, ain't they? Give one game one day, another game the next day. Be real. Just tell us where the fucking
right. How many people are sitting on their hands going, I wonder what Syracuse's schedule in 2024? Just drop the damn schedule, man. The SEC's has been out for a month now or something like that. Just drop the schedule.
And they had a whole ESPN show about it. And the ACC acts like anybody gives a shit. It's like anybody cares other than Florida State and Clemson fans about the schedule.
Right.
You're dropping it it's here's a nugget here. Here's this week. Week 2 coming next, guys. And everybody's like, we don't care because we only care about basketball. Sorry.
Right. Just drop it. And someone did ask, does the spring game matter? No. I mean, I don't really think spring games, I mean, they use it as a glorified practice. Look at the way they ran the one a few years ago where they just did a bunch of 2-point plays on the goal line and threw like 3 interceptions to start the thing off. I just think the good thing for that is it's our first chance, people who can't go behind the scenes, to see some of these guys in action together. But at the same time, you also got to look at the spring portal season. Like, I'm trying to get ready to do some things for 2024. It is so hard to pin down who is where, how many people got the extra COVID year and all this stuff. The portal season is going to open up again in the spring in April. So I think it's like, yeah, it'll be cool for us to watch, but there's still so much that can change between now and then.
Here's the thing about the spring game. Here's why I'm excited about this whole thing. There's going to be competition. Yes, yeah. That. Of course, Jen is going to be at the spring game. We're going to be at the, Jen Media Group, Spear Addicts, 36 Degrees, Dope Talk with CJ Wilson. The big tailgate. We'll be there. Make sure everybody's there. But the big thing about this spring semester is the competition. Everybody knows we're over the scholarship limit. Plus, we're going to have scholarship limitations that get enacted when we get to the fall. So whatever, we've got 90+ guys. But we're going to really find out. Mike Norvell and the staff do an amazing job of figuring out who's going to be in the plans in the future, who to push out, who to get in. So we're going to see, what the deal is. We're going to see after spring, those exit interviews, we're probably going to have another 5 to 10, maybe more guys, I think, transfer out. And you have another handful come in. Who knows? We've got Keon Coleman. We've got what was the guy from Notre Dame?
Dylan
Gibbons. Yeah. We've got Dylan Gibbons. We've got a lot of these guys in that second period. So make no mistake. I think we get an experienced linebacker at least in that second period. And like you said, maybe a defensive tackle would be nice. It'll be somebody from somewhere. I
will say too, on the scholarship thing, I looked it up on Florida State's website, and all in cost. I mean, like everything, housing and everything at Florida State it was about $40,000 a year. That's what's off Florida State's website. So, I mean, with NIL nowadays, even if you don't have a guy on scholarship, you can pretty much have a guy on a backdoor scholarship with an NIL deal. So, you may, like you said, George, you're going to see some guys who find out they aren't part of the plans, who are going to have to move. You just saw, the kid from South Carolina that left, the receiver, and it's like, Joshua Burrell. It's like you got to make room. You do have to make room, but you can also get some guys here that can stay as PWOs that are also, on an NIL deal that can pay for their scholarship, essentially. So, you may see some extra guys stick around, but I still think they got some pieces they're going to try and look for in the portal. And, you will find guys that find out they aren't part of the other team's plans and will hit the portal. Like you said, I mean, you got Keon late. You got Dylan Gibbons late. So, I mean, you never know. There could still be some guys out there. I think defensive tackle is one I would really like to see. And like you said, I think, linebacker, if you could just really just get one more experienced guy, I think you feel really good about next year. Because, man, I think, again, you just talk about 2024. I think there's a little bit more of a unknown factor to this team. But I just think there is still, when you look at that schedule, you get Clemson at home, you get Florida at home, you got to go to Notre Dame. I'm not overly scared of Notre Dame.
That's the thing I forgot to bring up earlier last year when I was talking about the success and the talent. Like, there is also the fact that it's a much easier schedule. Like, that helps. Right. Plus, all the buys keeps you healthier. You don't have to rotate as much on the defensive line just for the fact of you've got so many damn buys to stay healthy. Sorry.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree, man. I mean, I just think, like, you don't have to go to Death Valley. You don't have to play LSU to start the season. You don't have to go to the Swamp. Like, it sets up for a good year. And again, I think when you look at just the blue chip ratio in general, you look at the talent level of this roster and how it's rising. I think you have a potential to have another really, really good year this season. And I just think the schedule sets up nicely. Like, really, I think, Clemson's a game to watch purely from a talent perspective, and they have a really good defense. I think Miami is a game that, can give you a little bit of a scare with Cam Ward traveling down there, to Doak South. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. I mean, it was a 7-point game this year. Would have been 14 if it wasn't for a fluke touchdown there late. That probably doesn't happen but 1 in 10 times, and it just happened to be that time. But then, you got, really, outside of going to Notre Dame, I don't see anything that scares you on that schedule. And even then, I mean, they got Riley Leonard, who's a good quarterback, but I I mean,
he's more of a runner. Like, it was like people made out like he's his first start. I don't understand where some of these grades, like what made him the big first round draft pick. And I'm guilty of parroting it. And like, he's looked good, but I guess it's just that he's the perfect size and he won some games young. That makes him a number 1 draft pick.
I think when you look at what he can do at Notre Dame, I think it's sheerly from a talent standpoint of what's around him, because, Duke is really they don't have a lot of talent on that roster. So he will be in a better situation to win. But he's, like you said, man, he's more of a runner. He's not a real big pass threat that scares me too much. And even when you look at the really, like, the big year that he had in 2022, I mean, 2,967 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 through the air, ran for 699 on the 699 and 13 touchdowns on the ground. They did not play anybody that year. I mean, they pretty much everybody they played. And I thought they were going to come back to earth last year because they had such a different schedule, and they did. So I just, I know he was hurt a little bit too, but like, I looked at the 2023 games before he got injured, because it's hard to use that season when he was injured. And when he played Clemson, a team with a defense that has a pulse, he had a 51.5% completion ratio, 175 yards, 0 through the air, 98 on the ground, and 1 touchdown. So really, the only thing he did was run the ball. Against Notre Dame, he got hurt literally like the last play of the game. So you can pretty much count every stat in there. 44.4% completion percentage, 134 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and 88 on the ground. So to me, when he plays good defenses, I know he doesn't have a lot of talent to work with at Duke, but I'd be more scared if Sam Hartman came back for another year than I would Riley Leonard.
Yeah, he's a work in progress. Maybe next year, but he'll go to the NFL. Sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I was going to say, I'm not scared of Riley Leonard at Notre Dame at all. In fact, I'm not scared of Notre Dame in the least. I understand what everybody else says. Notre Dame's defense is always god-awful when you put it up against the speed of the South. We know how this goes. It will go the exact same way. Please see Clemson last year. I don't even need to go down this road anymore. I think watching what Clemson did to Notre Dame last year tells me everything I need to know. I think Florida State will handle Notre Dame fine. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about Clemson either with Florida State, to be honest, because we get to play them at home. I think Clemson's a pretty good team. Yeah, but what I don't think is that Cade Klubnik can actually hold on to the ball. I think he turns it over at least twice at Doak, and I think that one of them might be a pick 6. We're going to see about that.
Yeah, and they did lose some pieces too now. I mean, they lost Bo Collins at receiver. They lost the talented safety.
And Shipley.
Right, and Ship, thank goodness.
Praise Lord Jesus.
I'm sure they probably have some other like 5'10" white dude who's going to play for 15 years. But at the same time, they lost a lot of their players. And so, I mean, and again, like you mentioned, still crickets in the portal. So I just think, like, really for Florida State, I think if you get past these first 2 games, you get past Georgia Tech, you get past Boston College, you're 2-0, you get a little bit of the new pieces a chance to gel together in some very winnable games. I don't see why once you get that going, and then I believe it's Memphis is the week after that, but you should have probably a game in between there. I just don't see anybody that really scares you too much on the schedule. I really don't. I mean, obviously it's hard to go out and win every game, but I think Florida State, again, they're just in a better position. Clemson seems to be, there's some question marks there, the culture things and like, I don't know, man. You got a quarterback who goes rogue. They tell him it's like a straight handoff in some of these games, and he just does what he wants to do.
Hey, look. We're not going to start bashing quarterbacks that go rogue and hand off balls when they're not supposed to, because Jameis Winston is a god around here, and I love him, and he can do whatever he wants to if he wants to change plays.
But he actually makes it work. He doesn't.
That's
just
a little bit different. Bit of a different situation there.
I wanted to just throw that in there. I just wanted to throw that in there. That's all.
Amelia Island Knoll, who's constantly making it rain in here, says, another great show, guys. We sure appreciate the $4.99 live chat right here at the end. We're almost done here, guys. When we leave, also, it might be over. They might still be going on, but our buddy Pete the Greek has Marvin Jones on a space. It's being recorded, and there's also Spear Addicts and James Coleman and some different people that have spoke. So definitely get over there, and you can check out the end of that. Let them know we sent you, and then or if you miss it, check out the recording.
And James had on Xavier Lee today, guys.
Yes, go check that out.
I have
for
not
sure.
finished it yet. I only got through like the first 45 minutes. It's so good. You've got to go listen to it. I'm going to finish it tonight when I hop in my bed and my PJs. That's what I'm going to listen to fall asleep. So I guess it's better than Shark Attack videos is what I usually listen to help me relax. So
that's mildly
or murders.
concerning.
Let's go. What is this at the end of every show? Bam. Jeff Hill making it rain again. Another 5 Renegade Report memberships. That's going to put us well over 100, more like 110 probably by now. So we appreciate it, Jeff Hill, for coming through and making it rain. There was one more question that came in. I'll have to tell you about it after the show, Jen. I'm not gonna say this one on the air, but the troll out there, the second one wasn't as funny as the first one, bro. You got to come up better than that.
Yeah, I will say that man, Marvin Jones, he's such a great guy. Like I'm gonna I just clipped up the video that we did last year with him to re-upload it again. I'm gonna upload it tomorrow. If you guys are interested in checking that out, just talking about the Laser Center project that they got coming online. It's an NIL, kind of done differently. The project that they got Florida State, it's Life After Sports and Employment. Is what it stands for. And so there's some exciting things going on that they're going to be doing with the guys at Micanopy 1851 and with juniors, Marvin Jones Jr.'s non-for-profit. They got some exciting things coming up too. So yeah, that should be a really good space to check out. Marvin is also, he's so funny, man. You cannot tell him that he is not the best linebacker or the best Florida State Seminole to play in Garnet and Gold. He will make sure you know that.
Yeah, he's got that argument.
Yes,
for sure. Guys, we're right here at the end. We're gonna give you another 2 seconds. Jen, you got anything before we go? Unless any calls come in, we're gonna wrap it up, I think. Bam. Another great show. Jesse Coger from plantthespear.com. Thank you for joining us again, brother. Jen, killed it as always. This has been just a dream for me. Absolute blast. We keep doing this thing. We'll be back Friday. We're going to have that member show. We're either going to do it Friday or a special show. We haven't figured it out yet, but stay tuned. And hopefully we're working on getting a former player Sunday. So we should have a surprise for you on that coming soon. So again, let's put on that fun clip of Carlos Williams to end this thing off, and we'll get out of here. We'll see you guys later.
First off, fuck Bama in the road tide. Fuck Tuscaloosa in every city that's close by. Bitch ass hillbilly redneck fans. Auburn almost caught y'all slacking like dress pants. Michigan trash, they ain't got a damn chance. Only Wolverine I respect is X-Man. Keen ass coach got exposed, still in plays. Damn right I'm bitter, y'all sweeter than lemonade. Texas ain't shit to rave about.